Long after the echoes of laughter and outrage had faded from the ancient pagoda, the annals of the sealing ancient village began to whisper a story that defied reason. Martial God Asura, chapter 1356, opens with Wang Qiang, that most unpredictable of misfits, turning a vulgar mishap into a spectacle that unsettled even the proudest elders. The air still hung heavy with the stench of his infamous act. Yet the true contest, the spirit power competition, loomed like a storm waiting to break. One by one, the younger generation attempted the labyrinthine formation, their progress slow, measured, until the Zhou siblings shattered expectations with their brilliance. And then, as if a bolt of lightning had struck the ancient stones themselves, Wang Qiang emerged in a mere minute, leaving the crowd in disbelief, pride and shame colliding in their hearts. Now, all eyes turned to Chu Feng, the quiet force whose own spirit power, honed unknowingly through the heaven's eyes, may surpass even what was thought impossible. The tension hangs thick. Can Chu Feng rise above, or will the weight of the village's pride crush him before he even steps forward? A spirit power trial should have been a sacred contest. But in the sealing ancient village, even a ceremony before the ancestors could not escape humiliation, arrogance, and one very strange man who somehow turned embarrassment into victory. After the absurd disturbance caused by Wang Qiang's sleeping mishap, Chu Feng could only look at him with disbelief. Most people would feel ashamed after causing such a scene in front of elders, guests and rival geniuses. Wang Qiang, however, was not most people. When he learned that Zhou Sichen, the Grand Vice Village Chief, had been caught in the disaster, he did not panic, he was pleased. And that tells us something important about Wang Qiang. Beneath his ridiculous behavior, he has a fearless, almost shameless defiance toward authority. In a world where hierarchy decides who may speak, who may bow, and who may live, Wang Qiang refuses to treat status as sacred. To him, even a powerful elder can become the target of mockery. That makes him crude, yes, but also strangely dangerous, because someone who cannot be embarrassed cannot be controlled easily. Once that bizarre episode passed, the ancestral ceremony continued until the real purpose of the gathering finally arrived, the spirit power competition. This was no ordinary contest of speed. Inside the ancient pagoda stood a special formation connected to the pagoda itself. Participants were forbidden from opening their eyes. They could not rely on ordinary sight, and they could not use world spirit techniques to cheat their way through. They had to move by sensing the invisible world around them. In cultivation terms, this kind of test is extremely revealing. Martial strength can crush mountains. Spirit formation skill can construct barriers, seals, and killing arrays. But spirit power is more subtle. It is perception, instinct, mental clarity, and control. It is the ability to read space without seeing it, to feel danger before touching it, to understand the path when the path is hidden. For a village named after sealing arts, this test is almost like a mirror of the soul. The sealing ancient village even projected the inside of the pagoda outward, allowing everyone to watch each participant's progress. No one could hide. No one could pretend. Talent, weakness, panic, and dishonesty would all be exposed before the crowd. And exposed they were. The younger generation of the village entered first. Many ordinary disciples struggled badly. Some needed a long time just to find the exit. Others tried to break the rules, using forbidden methods or opening their eyes, only to be caught by the formation immediately. This detail matters because it proves the pagoda is not merely a ceremonial toy. Its restrictions are alive, sharp, and precise. In the world of spirit formations, a rule is not just a rule. It can be a trap, a judgment, and a punishment all at once. The competition dragged on far longer than expected. One group after another entered. Day turned into night. Night became morning. The trial continued until the atmosphere itself felt exhausted. Then at last, only 3 important names remained. Zhou Feng, Zhou Hu, Zhou Long. The 3 Zhou siblings, descendants of Zhou Sichen, carried both the pride and resentment of the village. Many villagers cheered for them because they were genuine talents. Others disliked them because talent had fed their arrogance. This is one of the classic tensions in Xianxia clans. When genius is protected by family power, admiration and hatred grow from the same root. And once they entered the formation, their skill could not be denied. Zhou Feng cleared it in 8 minutes. Zhou cleared it in 6. Then Zhou Long stepped forward and delivered the result everyone feared and expected. 3 minutes. That number shook the crowd. For the 5th year in a row, Zhou Long stood at the peak of the spirit power competition. Even more impressively, he had improved from the year before. Among the village disciples, his dominance was not rumor or empty boasting. It was proven by the ancient pagoda itself. This is why Zhou Long can act like a tyrant and still have supporters. In cultivation societies, talent often becomes a shield. The more promise someone has, the more people excuse their cruelty. Villagers who might dislike Zhou Long still have to admit one thing: his spirit power is extraordinary. Some even began comparing him to the village chief's legendary record. That comparison is dangerous. The village chief once set a 2-minute benchmark, a record tied to his reputation as perhaps the greatest world spiritist the village had ever produced. Yet he was also injured in the past, and that injury limited his future progress. So when people look at Zhou Long, they are not only seeing the present champion, they are imagining the next pillar of the village. But that kind of praise can poison a young genius, because when everyone calls you destined to surpass your predecessors, humility becomes harder than cultivation. After Zhou Long's dazzling performance, the guests finally began to take their turns. And unfortunately for them, the contrast was brutal. Their times were far slower. Some took many times longer than Zhou Long. Instead of challenging his record, they only made his achievement shine brighter. Every failed attempt became another step beneath his feet. The villagers grew prouder. The guests grew gloomier. This is the kind of social battlefield wuxia stories love. No swords are drawn, no blood is spilled, yet reputations are being wounded in public. The host village wants to prove its superiority. The outsiders want to preserve their dignity. And Chu Feng, watching quietly, understands that the real battle has not yet begun, because beside him is Wang Qiang, a man who looks like a fool, speaks like a joke, acts like a walking disaster, but whose confidence does not bend. After watching guest after guest fail to threaten Zhou Long's position, Wang Qiang finally loses patience. He jumps forward, unable to tolerate the display any longer, and openly dismisses the previous participants as worthless. Then he moves toward the ancient pagoda. This moment is more important than it first appears. Wang Qiang is not merely entering a competition. He is challenging the pride of the sealing ancient village. He is stepping into a formation where Zhou Long's 3-minute record has just become a mountain. If Wang Qiang fails, he will become a laughingstock. If he succeeds, he will tear open the illusion that Zhou Long is untouchable. And that is why this ending works so well. The chapter begins with Wang Qiang as comic relief, the strange man no one can take seriously. But by the end, that same ridiculous figure is standing before the sacred pagoda, preparing to test himself against the village's greatest young spirit power genius. In Xianxia, appearances often deceive. The arrogant genius may not be the true monster. The silent observer may be more dangerous than the champion. And the shameless fool, laughing at the edge of the stage, may be hiding a power that no one is ready to witness. So now the question becomes simple. Was Wang Qiang just making noise? Or is the sealing ancient village about to learn that the strangest cultivators are sometimes the most heaven-defying? Imagine a moment where the impossible suddenly becomes reality, and the air itself seems to tremble with disbelief. Today we witness a tale of sheer audacity, raw power, and the kind of spirit mastery that legends are forged from. This is the story of Wang Qiang and Chu Feng, two warriors stepping into a crucible that would test not just their strength, but their very essence. The stage was set in the ancient pagoda, a place where countless challengers had faced trials designed to humble even the mightiest cultivators. Wang Qiang, a man already known for standing toe-to-toe with the likes of Chu Feng, strode into the formation with the confidence of someone who trusted in his own spirit power over all else. The guests, many seasoned cultivators themselves, watched with bated breath. They weren't expecting him to surpass the village champions, but even a modest triumph could restore some face for their faction. What happened next shattered every expectation. In a heartbeat, Wang Qiang emerged. 1 minute. One solitary, impossible minute to navigate a formation that had defeated generations. The crowd erupted, but not everyone was thrilled. The villagers of the sealing ancient village, whose best record had stood at 2 minutes, sat frozen in stunned silence. Their own champion had been eclipsed by an outsider, and the disbelief turned quickly into anger. Accusations of cheating flew, yet Wang Qiang, brimming with unyielding pride, dared them to try for themselves, his defiance sharp and unapologetic. Here the story teaches us something crucial about Wuxia and Xianxia worlds. Power and confidence are inseparable. Wang Qiang's spirit power was not just raw energy. It was a refined instrument of precision, honed to pierce through barriers that most could barely comprehend. His audacity to taunt the Zhou siblings while still maintaining composure highlighted not just his cultivation, but his psychology. A warrior who understood that fear and respect are wielded as effectively as any sword or spell. But the real drama was just beginning. As silence fell over the plaza, Chu Feng arrived. The crowd, still reeling from Wang Qiang's astonishing feat, now held their breath for the one who had already bested Wang Qiang in prior contests. Yet even they doubted. After all, a single minute seemed to push the limits of human spirit power. Could anyone surpass that? Chu Feng entered the formation with eyes closed, relying solely on his spirit perception, a testament to the depth of his cultivation. Every step was guided by intuition and raw spiritual resonance, a dance between mind and energy. Here we see a pivotal point in understanding cultivation. True mastery isn't about speed alone. It's about attuning one's essence to the world around them, turning unseen power into visible results. Even Chu Feng, as he moved, was caught in a whirlwind of focus, forgetting time, forgetting speed, existing only in the flow of his spirit's path. Then, the impossible happened, half a minute. In 30 seconds, Chu Feng emerged from the formation, shattering Wang Qiang's record and leaving the audience in a state of pure awe. It wasn't just a victory. It was a revelation of what untapped spirit power could achieve when coupled with unwavering resolve. The reaction was instantaneous. Respect, shock, and something bordering on reverence filled the plaza. Even Wang Qiang, the master who had seemed unbeatable, stood in stunned silence. The hierarchy of power had shifted in the blink of an eye. What makes this moment so compelling is not just the display of strength, but the narrative lessons embedded within. Wang Qiang's feat taught the crowd about boldness and confidence. Chu Feng's about the refinement and potential of spirit mastery. And in the subtle dance between challenge and triumph, we see a fundamental theme of Xianxia storytelling. The path of the cultivator is never fixed, and every trial is both a crucible and a revelation. So what does this mean for the saga ahead? With Chu Feng now setting an unprecedented benchmark, the field of challengers will never view him the same way again. And Wang Qiang, though defeated, is far from diminished. His raw power, audacity, and spirit mastery have earned him legendary status in their own right. The stage is set for even greater conflicts, higher stakes, and the kind of legendary duels that shape the very fabric of the martial world. In the end, this chapter is more than a competition. It's a study in the extremes of cultivation, the psychology of rivalry, and the moment when human potential brushes against the divine. 1 minute, half a minute, and the echoes of that impossible speed will ripple through the sealing ancient village for generations to come. What other unimaginable feats await our heroes? And just how far can spirit power bend reality itself? Only the next trial will tell. Imagine standing in the grand plaza of the sealing ancient village, the air thick with tension. Every spectator holding their breath as a young cultivator faces what seems like an insurmountable trial. Today we witness not just a competition of strength, but a test of spirit, perception, and the very essence of honor itself. This is the moment Chu Feng steps into legend. Chu Feng had just emerged victorious in the spirit power trial, a feat that even the seasoned observers had not expected. His spirit power, honed subtly alongside the mastery of the heaven's eyes, had grown in ways he himself hadn't realized. What's fascinating here is the cultivation logic. In Xianxia worlds, power isn't always raw strength, it's about synergy. Chu Feng's seemingly incidental training in the heaven's eyes amplified his spirit power naturally. It's a perfect illustration of how true mastery often arises unconsciously, when skill and inner cultivation intertwine. At first, the plaza erupted in joy for him. He had achieved a score no one dared to challenge. But the drama intensifies when authority clashes with truth. Zhou Xichen, the vice-village chief, and a man whose ambition was as palpable as his arrogance, declared the winners. Shock rippled through the crowd. The top 3 spots were handed exclusively to the Zhou siblings. Chu Feng, despite his godly performance, was erased from the accolades. This wasn't just a denial of victory. It was an audacious rewriting of reality in front of witnesses. Here the story deepens into a classic Xianxia motif, the abuse of power. Zhou Xichen's behavior is a study in insecurity, masked as authority. He feared the brilliance of outsiders would outshine his own lineage. When Grandpa Song challenged him, insisting that such partiality dishonored the village, the vice-village chief's fury exposed the underlying politics of immortal clans. Authority can intimidate even the wisest, and fear often silences truth. Zhou Xichen's explanation, that Chu Feng and Wang Qiang had cheated using interference stones, was designed to manipulate perception. These stones, capable of disrupting even the most sophisticated formations, are no trivial matter. But here's the key insight. In Xianxia logic, a cultivator's true skill cannot be hidden. Chu Feng had relied on his innate power to pass the trial. The stones, if they had been used at all, were irrelevant to his accomplishment. The vice-village chief's accusation was a desperate attempt to reconcile his pride with reality. And then comes the most audacious moment of all. Chu Feng, in a move that baffles friend and foe alike, claims the interference stones as his own. At first glance, it seems absurd. Why tarnish your own name when victory is at stake? But this is a masterstroke of strategy and narrative. By seemingly admitting guilt, Chu Feng shifts the audience's focus from his potential wrongdoing to the clear injustice of Zhou Xichen's conduct. It's a calculated sacrifice of reputation to expose arrogance and corruption, demonstrating that in the Xianxia world, wisdom and composure often outweigh brute strength. This moment also provides a deeper look at Chu Feng's character. Here is a young cultivator who understands the power of perception, the subtle art of influence, and the importance of integrity in a world that often measures worth by victories alone. His joy at winning is tempered by the harsh reality of hierarchical politics, and his response, deliberate, bold, and slightly provocative, reveals a maturity beyond his years. From a cultivation perspective, this chapter is brilliant. Chu Feng's inadvertent spirit power growth through Heaven's eyes highlights a recurring theme in martial legends. True strength emerges not just from deliberate training, but from the integration of skill, awareness, and the environment. Meanwhile, the interference stones serve as a narrative mirror, reflecting the tension between natural ability and external manipulation, a cautionary lesson for all cultivators that power alone does not dictate outcomes. Wisdom, timing, and moral clarity do. So, as the crowd buzzes, torn between shock and admiration, we're left with a fascinating tension. The young hero's triumph is undeniable, yet his reputation is momentarily smeared. It sets up a compelling arc. Will Chu Feng reclaim public perception, or will the shadows of authority suppress his brilliance? One thing is clear. In the grand tapestry of the sealing ancient village, this event will be remembered not just for scores or victories, but for the courage, strategy, and heart that define a true cultivator. A single stone was supposed to bury Chu Feng's reputation. But in the world of martial cultivators, where schemes are often sharper than swords, one careless accusation can become the very blade that cuts its owner down. At this moment in the sealing ancient village, Chu Feng and Wang Qiang stood accused of cheating in the spirit power competition. The charge sounded simple on the surface. They had supposedly used special interference stones to fool the pagoda's formation. But anyone paying close attention could feel that something was wrong. The Zhou siblings understood it best. They knew their grandfather, vice-village chief Zhou Xichen. They knew his temper, his pride, and his refusal to accept outsiders stealing glory from the village. And because of that, they also knew the truth. Chu Feng and Wang Qiang were not cheaters. They were being used as sacrifices to protect the village's face. This is where Chu Feng's brilliance begins. Instead of arguing endlessly, instead of getting trapped in a shouting match against an elder with status, Chu Feng appeared to accept the accusation. To outsiders, it looked foolish. Even the Zhou siblings wondered if he had lost his judgment and simply wanted to grab compensation before being thrown out. But Chu Feng was not surrendering. He was setting the board. Zhou Xiqian, thinking he had gained the advantage, threw the so-called interference stones back at Chu Feng and Wang Qiang. Wang Qiang instantly rejected his, refusing to touch anything that might make the accusation look true. Chu Feng, however, caught his stone calmly. And then, before anyone could stop him, he rushed straight into the ancient pagoda's formation. This was the turning point. Chu Feng raised the stone before everyone and made the situation painfully clear. If Zhou Xiqian's claim was true, then this stone should be able to block the formation's detection. If it truly interfered with the pagoda, then Chu Feng opening his eyes inside the test area should trigger nothing. Then Chu Feng opened his eyes. The formation immediately reacted. Light surged. The alarm rang out. The ancient mechanism exposed the lie before the entire crowd. In one move, Chu Feng transformed the accusation into proof of his innocence. He did not need to beg for trust. He forced the formation itself to testify. This is why Chu Feng is dangerous. His strength is not only in cultivation, his real weapon is timing. He understands that in a public conflict, truth alone is often weak. Truth needs a stage. Truth needs witnesses, and Chu Feng created both. The guests finally saw through Zhou Xiqian's scheme. The interference stone had failed. The accusation had no foundation. If the stone could not deceive the formation now, then how could Chu Feng and Wang Qiang have used it to cheat earlier? The crowd turned. And once public opinion turns in a cultivation world gathering, even a vice-village chief can feel like he is standing beneath heavenly judgment. Chu Feng did not stop with the test. He pressed the advantage. He challenged Zhou Xiqian's dignity directly. If the village did not want outsiders winning, then it should have banned outsiders from entering. But to invite them in, allow them to compete, and then frame them after they won. That was not authority. That was cowardice dressed in elder robes. This accusation struck deeper than any palm technique. For a village built on reputation, fairness, and tradition, Chu Feng's words were a devastating blow. He was no longer merely defending himself. He was questioning whether someone like Zhou Xiqian deserved to guide the sealing ancient village at all. And the crowd agreed. Guests began condemning the vice-village chief openly. They were not only angry for Chu Feng and Wang Qiang. They were defending the dignity of all outsiders who had entered the competition. If Zhou Xiqian could frame two winners today, then what protection did any guest have tomorrow? For a brief moment, Chu Feng seemed to have won, but then came the sound of clapping, clear, heavy, impossible to ignore. The noise cut through the crowd like a bell from an ancient temple. Everyone turned and the atmosphere changed at once. An old man had arrived, white hair, plain cotton clothes, a body that gave off no need for decoration, because true power does not require ornaments. His aura was deep, restrained, and unfathomable. The kind of presence that tells every cultivator nearby that this is not a man to measure carelessly. The villagers immediately recognized him. The village chief of the sealing ancient village had appeared. This should have been good news. After all, unlike Zhou Xiqian, the old chief carried a reputation for fairness. His name held weight not only inside the village, but throughout the Alliance domain. People respected him, people trusted him, and that is exactly why what happened next was so dangerous. The old village chief praised Chu Feng, but his praise carried a hidden edge. Chu Feng sensed it immediately. This was not the warmth of a senior acknowledging a talented junior. This was the calm before a strike. The old chief suggested that Chu Feng possessed the ability to twist falsehood into truth. Then he drew the interference stone from Chu Feng's hand with a powerful force, as if reclaiming the narrative itself. And with a single explanation, he reversed the entire situation. According to him, the stone had only one use. Since it had already been used before, it had naturally lost its power. That, he claimed, was why it failed when Chu Feng tested it inside the formation. This was a terrifying move, not because the explanation was proven, but because of who said it. When Zhou Xiqian spoke, people doubted him. His motive was too obvious. His loss of face was too clear. But when the old village chief spoke, the crowd hesitated. His prestige became a kind of spiritual pressure. His reputation carried more force than the evidence in front of everyone's eyes. This is the real battle of the chapter. It is not a battle of fists, sword intent, or world spirit techniques. It is a battle over trust. Chu Feng used logic and public proof. Zhou Xiqian used accusation and authority. Then the old village chief entered and used something even stronger, reputation. In the cultivation world, power is not only measured by realm. Sometimes the heaviest pressure comes from status. A respected elder can bend a crowd's judgment with a few calm words, while a junior must risk everything just to make people listen. That is what makes this ending so tense. Chu Feng had exposed the scheme. He had turned the formation into his witness. He had shaken Zhou Xiqian's standing before the guests. But now the village chief has stepped in, not to rescue justice, but to protect the village's side. And the crowd, which had only moments ago condemned Zhou Xiqian, suddenly begins to wonder again. Did Chu Feng truly prove his innocence, or has the old chief just planted enough doubt to drag him back into danger? This chapter shows us something important about Chu Feng's path. Talent can win competitions, courage can win battles, but when a young cultivator challenges an old power structure, he is no longer fighting one man. He is fighting the face, pride, and authority of an entire faction. And now that the old village chief has personally entered the game, the real question is no longer whether Zhou Xiqian was shameless. The question is whether Chu Feng can defeat a lie when that lie is spoken by someone everyone wants to believe. Imagine standing in a sacred formation, a place where the echoes of 10,000 years of martial history reverberate through stone and steel. And then, accusation. A claim so bold, so absolute, it shakes the very air. That Chu Feng and Wang Qiang, two young warriors, have cheated their way through a trial meant to test the limits of mortal and immortal alike. The old village chief, a figure renowned for his unwavering authority, points at them and declares their supposed transgression. He claims the interference stones, rare artifacts capable of distorting fate itself, were used once to manipulate the impossible records they set. Yet, when Chu Feng holds the stone before the formation, its power has waned. The accusation, though firm, is now shadowed by doubt. Was it truth, or merely a convenient narrative to uphold an ancient village's pride? Here we see the tension of pride versus truth. Wang Qiang's fury boils over. He even attempts the absurd, threatening to enter the formation utterly stripped to prove his innocence. It's a moment that blends comic defiance with the raw human instinct to assert justice when cornered. But in this world, raw power matters more than spectacle. Despite their incredible cultivation, Chu Feng and Wang Qiang are bound by the overwhelming might of the half-martial emperors, the village's enforcers, embodiments of centuries of honed power. No amount of skill, no heaven-defying technique can instantly undo their grasp. Even allies are powerless. Grandpa Song and Granny Lin step forward, a symbol of reason and morality, to plead for them. But the chief's cold warning silences them. Here, we see a critical lesson in Xianxia society. Power hierarchy is absolute. Wisdom and loyalty can falter in the face of centuries honed authority. The old village chief's ruthlessness reminds us why legends are tempered by fear as much as by skill. Then, a shift. Chu Feng laughs. Not a light chuckle, but a roaring, electrifying sound that shakes the ears and hearts of all present. This laughter is more than defiance. It is a declaration of his inner strength and his indomitable spirit. In it lies a promise. He has been wronged, and this debt will not be forgotten. The laughter turns the tide of perception, forcing even the most powerful onlookers to pause. It's a brilliant display of psychological warfare. A young martial king asserting influence far beyond his rank, a clear signal that his backing is formidable and his patience finite. Chu Feng's words cut deeper than any blade. He refuses to accept false accusation. He acknowledges the village's authority, yet boldly declares that truth cannot be dictated. The sealing ancient village may cast him out, but it cannot rewrite the hearts of those who witnessed his trial, and in saying so, he plants a seed of inevitable reckoning. This is a classic Xianxia moment, a protagonist demonstrating moral courage and strategic foresight simultaneously. Chu Feng is not merely angry. He is calculating, understanding that the path forward requires both strength and patience. Finally, the old village chief's true motives emerge. In a silent, telepathic apology, he reveals his ailing condition, his need for closed-door training, and the political necessity of maintaining Zhou Xiqian's succession. He confesses the wrongdoing, framing it as unavoidable, not out of malice, but as a safeguard for the village's continuity. Here, the story subtly explores the moral grey of leadership. Decisions are rarely black and white, even in a world of cultivators and immortal legacies. Yet, there is restitution promised. Chu Feng's honor and reward will be doubled. This moment underscores an essential Xianxia theme. While injustice may strike, wisdom and power find a way to restore balance. It's a promise of future narrative tension and payoff, a subtle reminder that the seeds of loyalty, reputation, and vengeance are never dormant for long in a world built on cultivation and legacy. So, as Chu Feng departs the village, restrained yet unbroken, we are left with a scene heavy with implication. He has been wronged, yes, but more importantly, he has established himself as a figure who cannot be dismissed lightly. The echoes of this confrontation will ripple through the sealing ancient village and beyond, shaping alliances, enmities, and the very course of his cultivation path. And the question lingers, when the scales of justice finally swing, who will pay the price, and how devastating will it be?